decent winter storm that's moving into the region, already bringing some impacts to northwest Montana this afternoon. But we'll get started with us here in full here in just about 30 seconds to a minute, and we'll go from there. So, like I said, storm system is rolling in right now, and we are dealing with some travel impacts across the region. I will start you off with a look at radar across not only western Montana, but also the Pacific Northwest as a whole, as we'll be able to see this storm system as it's rolling in. Pacific Northwest as a whole, as we'll be able to see this storm system as it's rolling in. Okay. Like I said, it'll be about 30 seconds to a minute. I'll get everything working here behind the scenes, and we'll get started with this update in full momentarily. All right, there we go. I think we're all in good shape. So I think with that, let's get started, and I will try and not take too much of your time tonight, but there are, like I said, a few things that I want to discuss and talk about over the next, at least what we can expect over the next, say, 24 to 48 hours as the storm system is rolling in. So if you have any questions or comments as we go throughout this, feel free to ask those in the chat section, and I'll try and answer those as best as I can. And I think with that, let's get started. So let me flip this camera back around, and I'll show you the storm system that is driving all of the moisture across our region. You can see this plume of west to east moisture coming in from the Pacific, with a few storm systems kind of intermingled with it. You see a little bit of this bend back right here. That's the first low pressure system and cold front that are going to be moving in later on tonight. But you also see this spin right back in here, and that's going to be a quick moving system that's going to arrive as we head into Thursday, continuing Thursday through Friday morning, and that'll be one that we have to watch out for. But again, our main focus will be the storm system rolling in across the region right now. For the most part, it's just northwest Montana and the mountains of west central Montana that are contending with this. Southwest portions of the state, Dillon, Bozeman. Overall, just looking at cloudy skies, a few light snow showers here and there are ongoing, especially over towards Butte. But for the most part, just look at those cloudy skies. Temperatures in the lower 40s. Has been a little bit on the breezy to gusty side today. We've seen those winds anywhere from about 15 to as much as 30 miles per hour for both Dillon and Bozeman, as well as towards the mining city. But areas further east from there, towards Livingston, as well as east of the divide up into north central Montana, we've seen gusts this afternoon and evening anywhere from about 40 to 60, 65 miles per hour. And those winds are going to be important. But you notice in our Kalispell camera up here, and with that temperature at 33 degrees, we continue to see the snow. It's kind of hard to tell, but right here in the light, you can kind of see the snow pushing in. Let me see if I can get this a little bit closer so you can kind of get a sense of what we're seeing. You can see that snow moving across the light there. Not overly heavy right now in Kalispell, but it is coming down and could lead to a few travel issues later on this evening and into the overnight. But temperatures are going to be important as we see those temperatures close to freezing, more likely to have some of those travel impacts. But Missoula, for example, we've gone from 34 to 36 degrees over the last couple of hours. Now, I am going to bring up road conditions really quick. I've got this all pulled up on my other screen, but I'm just looking at the MDT 511 map. Really areas that we're watching for some of those, I'll say tricky trouble spots. Say that 5 times fast. What we're looking at is areas along US 2 from west of Libby, closer to the Kootenai Falls area, up through Troy into the Yak Valley, where we've got snow-covered roads on US 2. Same story on Highway 56 there, from Troy down through Bull Lake and to the Knox and Heron areas, where we have had a few slide-offs. So a couple of cars have gone off the side of the road there on Montana 56 north of Knoxon. So that's going to be a concern for many other areas tonight. Going down Highway 200 from the Knoxon and Heron areas all the way down to Thompson Falls. We're looking at snow-covered roads. That is an expansion of those from just a short time ago, where up towards Thompson, or not Thompson Falls, but up towards Trout Creek, we were just looking at wet conditions on those roads. Taking it up to Marias Pass, where we've got snow-packed roads up there, we were seeing some heavy snowfall earlier on when we could see the MDT camera from up there. Now that it's gone beyond sunset, we can't really see anything off that, but I would assume we're still talking about heavy snowfall in that area, similar to what we're seeing at Lookout Pass, Lolo Pass, very similar types of conditions. But further down to the south, overall just looking at wet road conditions towards US 93 from Kalispell down through Polson, Missoula down into the Bitterroot Valley, maybe a few icy spots on I-90 east of Missoula as you kind of get more into those canyony areas along the Clark Fork River from Drummond back over to Clinton. But then Lolo Pass is another one we're watching for, seeing some heavier accumulations of snow, snow-packed or snow-covered conditions there. Looking at the camera, there's been a few plows that have gone through there, so some improving conditions there. But Lookout Pass is the one right now, and I think that's going to continue to be the one that we really focus in on for those travel impacts tonight. Multiple spin-offs from semis in the westbound driver's lane or westbound driving lane. Though that stretch of the road, or at least that section of Lookout Pass, has been blocked on, again, in those westbound driving lanes for a number of hours, since about 5 o'clock this afternoon. Chains are required for all towing units from about I believe it's mile marker 4 all the way up to Lookout Pass, and then on the other side into Idaho as well. But that stretch of Interstate 90 from Lookout Pass through Taft, Saltese, Haugen, all the way to St. Regis is snow-covered right now. We'll continue to see some of those issues through that stretch of the road. For the most part, though, southwest Montana, other than a few icy patches left over from the last couple of days of snow and active weather, not too bad right now. I think most of southwest Montana is going to miss out on the majority of this moisture, but there is going to be at least the potential that we could see some issues later on. So let me spin this back around, and we'll take a look at radar briefly. We can see a lot of moisture pulling in from Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and it looks like Montana's not really getting much in the way of this snow and rain, but that's a bit deceiving. The National Weather Service radars, the Doppler radars near Missoula and over in Great Falls, are both down and have been since about this time yesterday, so we actually have no radar data, or at least clear radar data, in this zone. So we've kind of been, I'll be honest, flying a little bit blind today. Fortunately, with the MDT cameras, we've been able to kind of get an idea of what areas are dealing with the snowfall, like Lookout Pass up towards Essex, Yak Hill there on US 2, and Lolo Pass, while our array of cameras across the region have helped us out with, say Kalispell and Missoula, Butte, and Bozeman. So we're making it work, even though it is a little bit trickier than it would be otherwise. But even though we're not seeing that data return of the moisture, it is moving in really into this part of the state, a little bit more isolated further off to the south and west. Now, with the storm system rolling in, we've got winter weather advisories in blue, winter storm warnings. So the winter storm warning is for the lower Clark Fork region, primarily for the mountains as well as Lookout Pass, where we are going to see that heaviest snowfall. This also does include the northern Clearwater Mountains and the Idaho Panhandle area, back over towards Wallace and Kellogg. But around that, we do have winter weather advisories here in blue for the Kootenai Cabinet region, lower Clark Fork region, East Glacier Park region, Butte Blackfoot, Potomac Seeley Lake region, the Bitterroot and Sapphire Mountains, and the southern Clearwater Mountains. And we'll look at those snowfall totals here in a moment, but just in general, heaviest snowfall will be in these areas with the winter storm warnings, and that'll also be the greatest impacts. We're seeing the greatest lift in moisture really starting to kind of just pool up right in this zone. And then you notice Kalispell, the Flathead Mission Valleys, Missoula and Bitterroot Valleys, no advisories in place, and a big reason for that will likely be those temperatures slowly creeping up above freezing like we've already seen in Missoula, transitioning a lot of that moisture over to rain, and whatever doesn't get evaporated due to downslope flow will likely be falling as rain or a rain-snow mix, limiting the amount of impact that we're going to see. All of these will be in effect through 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So going into Future Tracker, this gives us a better sense of the kind of moisture that we're seeing that we couldn't pick up on radar. Areas along the divide up into northwest Montana and then right along the state line are the focus for some of this moderate to occasionally heavy snowfall. And that's going to continue to be the case throughout the night. If you watch, it just does not really move from that position. You notice Interstate 15 seems to be a really good dividing line. Not much in the way of moisture outside of areas near West Yellowstone. See that moisture cross that boundary of the interstate. So that's kind of going to be our dividing line with this storm system. One other note, like I said, those temperatures from Kalispell down through the Flathead and Mission valleys, down to the Bitterroot and Missoula valleys. You see the greens and the pinks showing up. That's that slightly warmer air down at the surface, and that's going to be that potential for rain as compared to snow, with temperatures hovering just above freezing. I will say, even in these areas, I think we're talking more of a rain-snow mix. There will likely be at least periods where it does transition back over to a bit more snowfall, especially if we get a bit heavier of a burst of moisture with this. But for this entire period, up in the mountains, up above, say, 3,500 feet, this is all going to be snow within this region. And that it does include, again, Lookout being the primary focus, but Lolo, Lost Trail, Marias, and Rogers passes likely seeing the greatest hits from this storm system, with that potential for some heavy snowfall overnight. One other note, and this is one reason why I think the valleys, at least in a few localized areas, will probably see snow return. Notice how we have these banding features showing up. This is going to be on the backside of that cold front that's going to move through. As that happens, we will likely see some snow bands develop. That could lead to some rapidly changing road and weather conditions within a pretty short distance as this moves across. So certainly be aware of that. This is looking around, say, 6 to 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I think that's going to be our window for northwest and west central Montana to be contending with some of those snow bands. Maybe more of a rain-snow mix in those bands down into the valleys, but that's still yet to be determined. And that's just going to be something we have to watch for throughout the morning. But even into the early afternoon, we're still dealing with a few spotty showers, but watch how this just really, once we get that cold front to push through, the moisture almost evaporates. And by the afternoon, maybe even some clearing skies into parts of the region, northwest and west central Montana specifically. Southwest Montana still dealing with some of those showers, especially from Bozeman back down towards West Yellowstone. But in comparison to what we're seeing, say, right now, pretty quiet conditions as we get into tomorrow afternoon. We get a little bit of a break from the active weather, though it will be on the windy side. And that's the other aspect of this that I want to bring up, and I don't think I have the graphic pulled up. But with that cold front, as it passes through and on the backside of this, we could be talking winds anywhere from, say, 20 to 40 miles per hour. That's going to be most likely for areas in our passes and higher elevations. But the way that the snow is on in this particular occasion with those winds, we could be dealing with some blowing and drifting snow, especially over our pass. So that's going to be something we watch for with this particular system. That may lead to some reduced visibility, maybe even, I wouldn't say ground blizzard conditions, but maybe like some brief windows where you see visibility drop down very quickly. And that could also help to create some more icy patches on the roads as well, leading to more travel impacts than just the snow itself. So, areas like Lookout, Lolo, Marias, Lost Trail Pass is going to be the primary focus for that occurring as that cold front comes through overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. One bit of good news is this front likely goes through when most people are sleeping, at least into the areas that are going to see the majority of the snowfall. So a little bit of a bit of a benefit, at least in the timing of how that front's coming through. But even throughout the morning tomorrow, still some breezy winds. Can't rule out some issues with some blowing snow, even in areas that may not see quite as much as further off to the west. So I'm looking at places like Butte, back down into the Valley, where we could see some of those stronger winds sneaking in. By tomorrow afternoon, again, we're still looking very quiet. Clouds will start to filter back in as we get into Thursday morning, likely seeing another system start to roll through. This one right now does not look as impressive as the current one we are dealing with, but this will be behind that cold front. So in this case, it does look like most of the precipitation will be falling as snow even in our valleys. So right now, some lighter accumulations with some scattered to widespread snowfall area-wide. It will be possible in our valleys, and we'll certainly get a better idea of what this storm system is going to look, as it's going to come in multiple waves. We'll see that initial one during the morning. Second one moves through the late morning, through lunchtime period, and then just some scattered showers all the way into the Friday morning time frame before high pressure builds in, we start to really quiet down. But in general, that's what we're looking at for precipitation, for snow, a little bit of rain, and those travel impacts. So looking at the potential accumulations, additional accumulations through Friday morning, like I was saying, this is really our focus. Lost Trail up to Rogers Pass, Marias Lookout, and Lolo passes. I think for Lost Trail and Rogers, we're talking more in that 3 to 8 inch range, 6 to 12 inches for Lolo and Marias Pass, and we could be more in the 12 to 18 inch range for Lookout Pass. Again, this is just the focus point for a lot of, or at least the greatest lift and the greatest moisture moving right into that portion of the mountains. Elsewhere, McDonald, Homestake, Bozeman, Oneida, probably a dusting upwards to 2 to maybe 3 inches on the high side. As you're seeing here, most of these we're talking a dusting upwards to an inch. So not looking at too much in the way of impact for areas between, say, Avon and Elliston over towards Helena, up over the divide at Homestake Pass there east of Butte, and then our passes along the state line, especially towards Monida. Less snow there. Targhee and Reynolds could still be dealing with some issues closer to West Yellowstone. Bozeman Pass are going to kind of get a clip from this, so not as much in the way of impact there. As for our valleys, even less of an impact as it looks like right now. This is going to go all the way through Friday morning once we finally start to quiet down. As you can see, really all of our valleys, we're talking less than an inch in most cases. The one exception will be up here in far northwestern Montana. We're talking the Yak Valley, Troy, Heron, Noxon, where we could see some isolated totals of 4 to 8 inches, just as we've been just getting hit with that push of moisture, at least this initial one. But like I said, most of our valleys up to an inch will be possible. There is a possibility that maybe we see an isolated total up to 2 inches for, say, like a Butte or a Seeley Lake, but right now that's looking less and less likely, at least to cause more significant impacts. But some minor travel impacts, some slick roads, I won't rule those out in the valleys, especially as we go from rain to that cold front passing through, and then seeing a little bit of a freeze up on the roads for tomorrow and tomorrow night, because it's going to be much cooler behind this cold front. West Yellowstone, the one exception, you're higher up in elevation, so no surprise there. We're talking about 3 to 6 inches down there. Now, this has all been driven by this trough of low pressure that's been sitting over the region. You can see this dipping through right now. This is what's helped to bring a little bit colder air. And with northwesterly flow, that's what's brought in the 2 storm systems we've seen so far. That'll bring in the storm for Thursday into Friday as well. But look at the ridge that starts to build in on the backside of this thing. Saturday, that centers right over western Montana. It's going to really dry us out and help us start to warm back up into the region. But watch how this just doesn't really change. We have a little bit of a dip Saturday into Sunday. Maybe a quick little system moves through, bringing a few isolated showers to the region. But then a ridge, an even stronger one, likely moves in as we head into Monday. Depending on where this ridge sets up is going to be very important. If this moves a little bit further to the east, that centers western Montana right underneath it. That would likely lead to the redevelopment of valley inversions, especially with the cold air that's already going to be at the surface. So valley inversions, low clouds, fog could return and become an issue as we head into early next week. So something we'll have plenty of time to watch, but that could also lead to some air stagnation, diminished air quality, that type of thing. But, and I say big but here, if this stays a little bit further off to the west and we don't see this move from this position, say it sits roughly in there, like the core of it sits between San Francisco and Portland, notice how we're on the northwesterly flow of this. This could actually help to drag a few showers, or at least a few storm systems, likely on the weaker side, right into the area around that high pressure ridge. So the location of this is going to play a bigger role in what we see for early to middle parts of next week. A lot more of the forecast models are keeping this ridge in place, which would likely keep us dry until at least the middle of next week. But there are a few that are keeping it just a bit further off to the west that may keep us a little more active moving into next week as well. But it's kind of where we're looking at there. You'll see the temperature swing. Ahead of the cold front for tomorrow in Bozeman, we're up to 42 degrees. That front likely comes through into the early afternoon time frame, so we'll hit that 42. Temperatures will be falling behind it down in southwest Montana. Thursday looking at a high of 26, 3 degrees below average. But watch Friday, Saturday, Sunday, temperatures start to climb, that high pressure builds in, and we're looking at those temperatures back into the low 40s once again for Butte and for Bozeman, about 10 to 15 degrees warmer than average. And we'll just have to keep an eye and see on places like Missoula and Kalispell, following a similar trend as it looks like right now. But if those valley inversions do start to set back up, that'll put a cap on how warm those temperatures get. And we may be a little bit closer to average just as that cold air really gets trapped and doesn't move anywhere. So, like I said, that's something we'll have plenty of time to watch. And that's really everything that I had. So this is going to be kind of the last call for questions. If you have any, I'm going to start wrapping this up and go grab some dinner in the meantime after that. But key takeaways as I finish this up. Storm system rolling in. Main impacts will be for our mountains with heavy accumulating snow. Marias Lookout, Lolo Lost Trail, and Rogers Passes are the 5 to watch for at least those greatest travel impacts. We're already dealing with those with the towing chains required for towing units over Lookout Pass on Interstate 90 with multiple spinouts there on the westbound driving lanes. That's helping to block those right now. But Lolo, Marias Passes, we've been dealing with accumulating snowfall. Could be seeing some of that. We'll likely see that continue overnight tonight. Heron, Yak, maybe even Libby, Troy. We're going to see at least the chance for some heavier snowfall, about 4 to 8 inches west of the Libby area, maybe 1 to 3 inches for Libby itself, back over towards St. Marion and Kyla. Most other valleys outside of Butte and maybe Seeley Lake, we're talking probably less than an inch in most cases, with some isolated totals of 1 to 2 inches. So not a major storm for our valleys, and places like Missoula and Hamilton, as well as Polson, we may see more rain than snow, at least initially, before we see those snow bands bring snow levels behind that cold front back down to the valley floors into tomorrow morning. That moves through southwest Montana. It's going to be a little bit gusty, a little bit breezy for tomorrow, so some blowing snow over our passes with the falling snow, but even after that, can't be ruled out. And then we'll see clearing skies for the afternoon before the next system moves in early Thursday morning. Though this one doesn't look particularly strong, it's more likely to bring scattered to widespread snow showers to the entirety of the region as we get into Thursday afternoon and Friday morning before high pressure builds in and we really start to quiet down for this weekend, and temperatures will slowly begin to climb, likely continuing at least into the early parts of next week, if not longer than that. So that's everything that I've got. Thank you for spending about 20-25 minutes with me this evening. And if you have any photos or videos of this storm system, of the snow, especially up into far northwestern Montana, would love to see those. Feel free to share those photos and videos with us, nbcmontana.com/chime-in. And then, so of course, tune back in tomorrow morning, NBC Montana Today, with Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster and Jason Hurst, starting at 5 o'clock. And Brooke will have the latest information on those road conditions and where we're seeing those worst impacts right now, at least I say right now, but right now at the time being tomorrow morning, and how that's going to impact the commute. And I think I'm going to wrap this up. We do not have a live broadcast at 10 o'clock tonight due to NBA basketball. So I'll be back tomorrow afternoon for our live coverage, 5, 6, and 10. But overall, it should be a much quieter evening for tomorrow as compared to what we're seeing today. So have a wonderful night. And if you have to hit the roads, stay safe. And especially if you have to go over the passes, I would say just delay until we can get to tomorrow. Things will be starting to improve, especially by the afternoon. But overall, again, have a great rest of your evening. Have a great Wednesday tomorrow, and I will see you all on the next one. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Combs.